Josh and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, without children. We've always had a strong, communicative relationship, and I genuinely love him. He's easygoing, and I've never questioned our bond. 3 years ago, he started working at a large accounting firm. He seems to thrive there, often talking about how much he enjoys it. He's made a lot of friends through work, and it's not uncommon for him to go out with them for drinks or social events. I've never felt the need to join him. I'm more introverted, content with my own circle of friends. But thinking back, it's strange that he's never asked if I'd like to meet his coworkers or join him for one of those events. It just never crossed my mind until yesterday. A few months ago, something odd happened that I brushed off at the time. I was at a bar with some friends when a man approached me. He seemed vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him. He greeted me by name, which caught me off guard. When I didn't immediately respond, he introduced himself saying, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." It clicked that I'd seen him in photos on Josh's phone. I don't use social media much, just a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if Josh posted those photos anywhere. But I recognized Jake, and that's when things got strange. He kept talking, clearly a few drinks in, and mentioned something about how it was great that Josh and I were still so close. He said, "I haven't talked to my brother in ages." It struck me as odd, but I assumed he was just drunk and rambling. When he started flirting, I quickly redirected my attention to my friends, and we left soon after. I didn't think it was worth mentioning to Josh. No harm done, right? I figured Jake wouldn't even remember the conversation. But yesterday, something else happened that I can't shake off. I was out walking our dog, Monty, a mixed breed with distinctive markings. I stopped at my usual cafe, and while I was in line, an older man in front of me turned around after getting his coffee. He spotted Monty and exclaimed, "Hello, Monty." Monty got really excited, which made me think this man might be one of Josh's colleagues, since Josh occasionally brings Monty to the office. I smiled and said hello, thinking it was sweet that Monty had a fan. The man introduced himself, confirming my suspicion that he worked with Josh. But then he said something that floored me. "Aren't you a good sister?" walking his dog for him. I froze, confused and caught off guard. I mumbled, "It's my dog," but couldn't bring myself to correct him about being Josh's wife, not his sister. The awkwardness overwhelmed me, and I just wanted to escape. He asked something about sharing the dog, but thankfully it was my turn to order, so I was able to avoid the conversation. Now I'm stuck in this bizarre situation, my mind spinning. Why would Josh tell his coworkers I'm his sister? I can't wrap my head around it. Part of me hopes it's just a misunderstanding, that maybe he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they've made assumptions. But the idea that he's possibly told them I'm his sister, especially when they've seen photos, makes my stomach churn. How do I even bring this up with him? I haven't told anyone except one close friend, who immediately went into plot his downfall mode, bless her. She's always got my back. But I don't want to jump to conclusions or risk our marriage over what might be nothing. What would you do in my shoes? Josh stumbled in around 2:30 a.m. last night, too drunk to do anything but collapse into bed. Honestly, I was relieved. There is no way I could have had that conversation with him in that state. I am up now, but he is still out cold. First off, I need to clear something up. A lot of people seem to think I have crippling social anxiety or that I am extremely introverted. I understand why you might think that, based on how I described what happened, but that is not really the case. When I say I am introverted, I just mean I am not thrilled about meeting a bunch of new people all at once, especially when it is a group of finance bros whose idea of a good time is endless rounds at a sports bar. I am not terrified of confrontation. I just prefer to keep things easygoing and avoid unnecessary awkwardness. Correcting people when they misidentify me is one of those awkward things I would rather sidestep, but I am not paralyzed by it. Also, I realize I did not explain this well, but Josh and I do share some mutual friends. Our lives are not completely separate. When we are around our mutual friends, he is affectionate, attentive, and everything you would expect from a loving husband. It is just his work friends that I have never had any interaction with. Some of you have compared what is happening to a situation where someone is being abused and is too blinded by love to see it. Or you have said I am foolish for thinking our relationship is healthy when it is obviously not. Honestly, that stings. I am a real person, and this situation is so bizarre and surreal to me. My first instinct was not to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you have helped me see that this is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that what happened was not just a mix-up, that there is enough here to warrant real concern. I have decided I cannot wait any longer. I am going to talk to Josh today and ask him directly why he has been telling his coworkers I am his sister. I have taken your advice and written down my thoughts so I can stay focused if things get emotional. I am determined not to let him sidestep this conversation, and I am hoping he can provide some proof that his colleagues know I am his wife. I know this is not the dramatic confrontation some of you might have wanted, but it is a Saturday, and I need answers. Wish me luck, and thank you all for your support. Additional information. I did not go into much detail about our relationship because it did not seem relevant at first, but when I say we have had the healthiest, most fulfilling relationship I have ever experienced, I mean it. Josh and I were friends for over a year before we started dating. We met at university. I have been in some pretty terrible relationships before, and when we started dating, Josh blew me away with how kind, empathetic, and intelligent he is. He remembers every little thing about me, and he does small acts of kindness daily just to make my life better. I would do anything for him, and he has always been incredibly supportive of me too. We are also very intimate and have a great love life, so it is not like he is starved for affection or anything like that. That is why this is so hard to process. It does not seem possible that he could be living some kind of double life. Even as I am typing this, it feels like a nightmare or something that is happening to someone else. Update. So on Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than Josh, who was still knocked out from his hangover. I decided to follow some of your advice and look through his phone while he was sleeping. I have used his phone before, just messing around, but I had never thought to check anything deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I went through the usual suspects: Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, messages, but nothing jumped out at me. I know people who cheat are usually good at covering their tracks, so I kept digging. Then I found a folder labeled work. Inside, there were a couple of Microsoft apps: Outlook, Authenticator, but what caught my eye was MS Teams. I opened it up and started looking through his work messages. It felt wrong, like I was invading his privacy, but I knew I had to do it. Seeing those one-on-one chats with his female coworkers hit me harder than I expected. On the surface, there is nothing inherently wrong with it. People work with others of the opposite gender, and communication is part of the job. But the messages I found, they had a subtle flirtatiousness that left me unsettled. A wink emoji here, a playful innuendo there, nothing overtly crossing a line, but enough to send me spiraling. It hurt, even though I did not find any blatant evidence of an affair. Still, I followed the advice of taking screenshots and airdropping them to myself, just in case. But I needed something more. I needed proof that he had been lying about me being his sister. A Reddit user comment suggested searching his messages for the word sister, and I wish I could have thanked them directly, but the post got locked. So I did it. I searched for sis in his MS Teams, hoping to catch anything that might refer to me. A bunch of unrelated messages popped up, mostly from other people talking about their own sisters. But then my heart nearly stopped when I found a message from Jake, the guy from the bar. It was from a Monday a few months ago. He had messaged Josh saying, "Ran into your sister at the bar on Friday. She is single, right?" And Josh, my husband, had the audacity to reply, "Nah, she is married." I cannot even describe the rage that washed over me in that moment. I was shaking so badly I thought I might explode. The realization that I could have confronted Josh about this months ago made me sick with anger. He must have been praying I would not remember meeting Jake, that I would not bring it up. He probably thought he was so clever for getting away with it, and the thought of him feeling smug about it almost made me burn a hole through the floor. But what really knocked the wind out of me was the twisted irony of his response. He had the nerve to tell Jake that I was married, as if to keep anyone from pursuing me while he was out here flirting with every woman in the office. The hypocrisy was enough to make me see red. I kept digging through the search results, scrolling back through 2 years' worth of messages, and then I found a message from Josh himself to a group chat. It said, "Me and sister in Nusa Dua," alongside a bunch of photos from our second anniversary trip to Bali. In the photos, he looked fit, shirtless, clearly showing off, and it broke me to see them. Those were our memories, our moments, and he was using them to build this lie. I was in tears, but I took screenshots of those too and airdropped them to myself. By the time I finished, I was devastated. I still am. Processing all of this feels impossible. But that was Saturday morning, and as soon as I could, I went straight to my friend Sophie's house. She has been my rock through all of this, even angrier than I was, which somehow made me feel less alone. Around 1:30 p.m., Josh called me, but I could not bring myself to answer. He sent me a few texts too. "Where are you, baby? I am ordering food. Want some? Sad to not wake up next to you this morning." I loved this man with everything I had, and it tore me apart to see him acting like nothing was wrong. It took every ounce of willpower not to just bury this whole thing and go home to him. I know some of you might think I am avoiding confrontation, but please have some empathy. I needed time to process, time to breathe, time to figure out how I was going to face him. I spent the night at Sophie's and we ordered Chinese food while she helped me plan what I would say. As the evening went on, the texts and calls from Josh kept coming, but eventually I just put my phone on Do Not Disturb. By Sunday morning, the sadness had turned to anger, and I finally texted him back. "Coming home now, need to talk." I kept it vague on purpose. I wanted him to sweat. When I got home, he tried to hug me, but I pulled away. We stood in the kitchen, the tension thick enough to choke on. I confronted him just like someone had suggested, looking him dead in the eyes and asking, "Why have you been telling your coworkers I am your sister?" I wish I could say it played out like a dramatic movie scene, the kind where the color drains from his face, or he looks like a deer caught in headlights. But it wasn't like that. Instead, it felt like he'd been preparing for this moment for a while. He just frowned, looking confused, and said, "Huh?" His reaction infuriated me. How could he pretend to be clueless after 3 years of lying? I didn't hold back. I told him to cut the act. I laid it out. 2 of his coworkers had greeted me as his sister, and I had proof. I knew he was pretending to be single. I demanded to know what he had to say for himself. But even then, he kept playing dumb. He got defensive, repeating things like, "I don't know what you're talking about, and why would I lie about you?" The fury inside me was overwhelming, and I couldn't hold back the tears I always cry when I'm angry. But he saw my tears and tried to comfort me, like I was the one losing my mind. I pulled out the screenshot of his message saying, "Me and sis," and shoved it in his face. "You tell me," I demanded. He stared at it, still pretending to be confused. "I don't know what I'm looking at," he said. "I'm confused." I was so angry I couldn't stay there. It felt like a dead end, like no matter what I said, he wouldn't admit anything. I stormed out and went back to Sophie's, feeling like I was about to explode. He was in tears when I left, which only made me angrier because it felt like he knew he was caught and was scrambling for a way out. He begged me to stay, but I told him that until he had something real to say, there was nothing left for us to talk about. Around 8:30 that evening, he called me again. This time I answered. He asked if we could talk, saying he had some things he needed to get off his chest. So I went back to our apartment. When I got there, he had written a bunch of notes on a piece of paper, like he'd prepared a speech, and he asked me to sit down on the couch. He said he wanted me to let him speak without interrupting. Here's the gist of what he said. He started by apologizing, over and over, admitting that he played dumb earlier because he couldn't think of an excuse fast enough. He confessed that when he first started his job, he quickly realized the work environment was like a fraternity house. His entire team was made up of single men in their 20s and 30s, guys he described as inappropriate. He noticed that the one guy on the team who was married got picked on or left out of social activities, like lunches or Friday nights out. Josh said he was desperate to fit in, terrified of being the fresh meat, so he just never mentioned that he was married. He claimed he still wore his wedding ring, but no one ever brought it up. Then a few months in, they were all out drinking after work. One of his coworkers saw a picture of us on his lock screen and asked who I was. In a moment of panic, he said, "My sister." He was crying as he admitted this, barely able to look at me, just reading from his notes. From that point on, he said, the lie snowballed. They kept asking about me, wanting to see more pictures, and he didn't have the courage to come clean. They'd joke about me, asking if he'd given them my number or teasing that they'd slept with me. When he got that message from Jake, he thought it was just more of the same, but he hated the jokes. That's why he told Jake I was married, hoping it would stop the comments. It didn't. He claimed this wasn't the first time he told them I was married, that he had said it right after the sister lie. He admitted that the photos from Nusa Dua were the only ones he had deliberately shared while lying about who I was. His colleagues had pestered him endlessly for pictures from our Bali trip, and he was ashamed that he had given in. Finally, he insisted he had never cheated on me, never even considered it. He said the flirtatious messages with his female coworkers were just banter, something that was common in the office. But he admitted it was gross and embarrassing to have been acting like an inappropriate person. He ended his speech with another round of apologies, admitting he was disgusted with himself, ashamed that he had lied for so long. He said he felt trapped, like he'd dug himself into a hole too deep to climb out of. He acknowledged that he could have told the truth to either his coworkers or me at any point, but he didn't because he was too much of a coward. He even offered to confess everything to his entire office, to tell them that I'm his wife, not his sister, if that's what I wanted. He said he'd quit his job without hesitation if it would make me feel better, and while he hoped I could forgive him, he understood if I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. He locked himself in the bathroom, and I just sat there on the couch, crying. Even now, I'm not sure if I can trust anything he said. If he can lie about something like that, what else could he be hiding? But his apology seemed sincere, and his explanation, as wild as it was, did have a ring of truth to it. He's always been outgoing but easily swayed by others, especially by his male friends. If nothing else, this whole situation just screams immaturity. I packed a bag and went back to Sophie's, where I still am as I write this. She told me I could stay as long as I needed. I told Josh I needed time away to think, to figure out if I can believe him or ever trust him again. He said he understood, that I should take as long as I needed, and that he'd still be there whenever I was ready, even if it takes a year. Right now, nothing feels real. I'm still in shock, trying to process everything. I can't keep food down, and my thoughts are a mess. I've taken the day off work, and Josh said he's taking the whole week off. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make any decisions until I've had time to clear my head. I spoke to my parents this morning, and my mother said it's just a bump in the road, but she and my father adore Josh, so they're pretty biased. That's where I'm at now. I need time before I decide anything. I don't know if I'm leaning toward forgiveness or divorce. Those seem like the only real options, but honestly, I just feel lost, like I'm floating in a void of emptiness. I'm so grateful for all your advice and support, and having this space to write down my thoughts has been a lifeline. This will be my last update unless I need to clear something up. Thanks again, and take care.